iOS 26.2 is out, and here are 10 new features you need to try. You can now add alarms when you create a reminder. Split View is back on iPad, more settings for AirDrop, passwords, liquid glass, and it looks like a lot of top podcasts are going to keep those automated chapters. We'll get into it. First, you have another option when you create a new reminder. Tap the plus icon to make a new one. You can create it like normal, but now when you tap the eye icon, you'll be able to attach a date and a time for an alert, and you'll also see this toggle for urgent. And if you toggle on that urgent reminder, now a full-on alarm is going to go off in addition to the regular reminder alert. And you'll see if you toggle on the urgent setting, alarms will activate even when a focus mode is on or your device is muted. And there's actually one other setting attached to this new reminders feature. So if you go to settings and search for reminders, here in the reminder settings, you will need to toggle on the alarms if you want to get that urgent alarm that you just set. And then if you scroll to the bottom of the reminder settings, you'll see here complete from alarm. If you toggle this on, you'll have the option to actually mark that reminder as complete when it goes off. If you keep that toggled off, you'll see snooze instead of complete when the reminder alerts you. Now, for some reason, I haven't been able to get those alarms to actually trigger when I create those reminders, but let me know your experience if you add any of those urgent reminders. Next, there are two big features coming to Apple Podcasts. The first is auto-generated chapters. And I've been poking around on some of the bigger shows like This is the Vergecast, and they seem to have allowed those automated chapters, and you'll see there's actually not any kind of sponsor or ad break chapters. They might have removed them, or maybe Apple is not generating them automatically, but you get chapters now in shows like the Vergecast, and you'll see that they were automatically generated right here. Even some of the biggest shows like Smartless, you're going to have chapters right here automatically generated. Call Her Daddy even now has chapters right up here. And of course, you'll always see the tag whether they're automatically created, or you'll see for shows that takes the time to put them in manually, like my podcast, Primary Technology. When you go into the chapters there, you'll see that those chapters are not automatically generated. We also put individual chapter artwork in every chapter. You can even scrub through and see the different chapter markings down here. But another big feature is what Apple calls timed links. Now, timed links are going to show up in a few places. This only works for Apple content like Apple News articles, Apple Podcasts, Apple TV shows and movies, and more. In the transcript, if a podcast creator links either in the chapter ID3 tags or with a timestamp in the episode description, you'll actually see that content linked right here in the transcript when it's mentioned. Also, if you go to the individual episode page and scroll to the bottom of the show notes, you'll see a From This Episode section, and any Apple content that was linked either in those chapters or the description will be linked down here. Again, it's only going to show Apple content like Apple News articles, Apple Podcasts, and more. I tried putting several YouTube video links or articles to websites. They will not show up in this From This Episode section or in the transcript. Now, there's one exception that I've found, and it will link to the episode page of your podcast. So this is not Apple content. This is not on Apple's website. This is just our episode webpage for Primary Technology, and Apple will show that in the From This Episode section, but that is the only link I've been able to work. So technically, you can hack this and you can make your episode webpage for an individual podcast some other link, but it's only going to work for that one URL. Everything else, it has to be Apple content. Also, in addition to links that creators might put in their podcast, if you mention another show, like Sharp Tech with Ben Thompson, Jason mentioned that in a recent episode, I didn't link this manually, but Apple Podcasts actually recognized that it was mentioned at this timestamp, so they automatically put a link to that podcast down here. I didn't do anything to add that. Same thing with the Smartless podcast. I talked about it when we were discussing podcasts, and so because it was mentioned, Apple's going to put that here in the From This Episode. And you can see here in the transcript, I mentioned the Smartless show, and Apple just went ahead and tagged that right here in the transcript. Creators can choose to turn that off, the auto tagging and even the automatic chapters. I hope most of them leave it on, especially the chapters feature. And you'll see here, even in the latest Vergecast, not only did it have those chapters, but if you go to the episode page, these are shows that they mentioned, not that they linked in the episode description or even in chapters that they put. I know David Pierce mentioned The Ringer, so that podcast was tagged. Obviously, they talked about Version History, their own show, and Decoder. So all of those are just going to automatically get tagged in the From This Episode section. All right, number 3, Split View on iPad. I talked about this in depth on my last 26.2 video, and it's a welcome feature that it came back. They brought slide over back in 26.1. Now we got a version of Split View. If you want to see an in-depth look at that, I'll link the video above and down in the description, but glad that feature is back. All right, number 4 is actually on the Mac, and it's called Edge Light. So I'm going to do a live demo here, turn off my studio lights. So this would be my typical lighting, and this feature would be great in hotel rooms. You have to do an interview maybe, and you don't have ideal conditions. Here in the menu bar on your Mac, if you have a camera already active, you'll see this new Edge Light feature. So right now, Edge Light is off. If I click Edge Light, you'll now see that there's an edge light that goes around the screen, And you can even adjust the color temperature. You can make them warmer or cooler. And you can also adjust the intensity. Now the intensity is actually just going to change the thickness of the edge light, not the actual brightness of your display. So depending on your computer and what monitor you're using, the actual effectiveness of that edge light will be different. If you have a MacBook Pro with that brighter display, the edge light is going to have more of an effect. So I'll turn the brightness up on my MacBook Air right here, and you can see the difference. Now you're going to start getting reflections if you have things like glasses, but one really cool feature of edge light is if you have to move your mouse and actually click something underneath the edge light, you'll see the edge light actually fades away whenever your mouse cursor approaches the edges, which is pretty cool. But I'm actually going to start a recording here from my MacBook Air camera, and you can see I'm going to turn edge light on and off so you can see what it looks like. Here's edge light on, and here's edge light off. Now again, not a huge difference with this MacBook Air display. It'd also be different if I'm a little closer and I can get in there. Edge light is going to help you not have as deep raccoon eyes and maybe reduce some of those shadows. So great feature if you're in hotel rooms recording, or maybe you travel often, you do a lot of Zoom calls with interviews. I think edge light's going to be a good feature. Next, we have another slider for liquid glass, but this time it's on the lock screen. So if you're here on the lock screen, you tap and hold and then go to customize. You can now adjust how transparent the actual clock part is on your wallpaper. So when you tap the clock, you'll see here, this is a thickness slider, which we've had before. And underneath that, you'll see we actually have a glass slider. So you can make it very opaque or very transparent if you would like. You also have the glass or solid option down here if you want to remove any glass effect at all. But if we keep it on glass and we go pretty transparent, depending on your wallpaper, it can look pretty cool. I like how it goes behind the trees here. Next, there's another feature for your phone to notify you of alerts. From the main settings screen, if we go down to accessibility and then go down to audio and visual, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see flash for alerts. And this used to just affect the LED light on the back, or the flash light. So you can still keep the LED flash on for alerts, but you can also choose to have the screen flash, so the actual device, the full-on screen. So if your phone is face up, then you'll actually see it. You can also choose to have both. You can have it flash when in silent mode and flash while unlocked. Keeping the flash while unlocked might be useful because if you're actually using your phone, you probably don't want your screen flashing you. But I'll turn on the screen and toggle on flash for alerts. Now you'll see the screen flash to full brightness when that notification came in. Next, there's a new setting for AirDrop. If you go back to settings, you'll now see the Manage Known AirDrop Contacts here at the bottom. When you add a contact here, you and the other person will appear in each other's AirDrop for 30 days when you share a one-time passcode. Now I've tried to add contacts here a few times, but they seem to disappear, so this feature might be coming when the final release. This is the release candidate that I have here, so this might change with that final release. Next, the Passwords app actually got a nice feature. If you ever told Apple Passwords to never remember passwords for a website, it can be hard to then add that website back. Well, if you go to settings and then password settings, I would just search for the Passwords app. You can now see a show excluded websites section. Now, if you want to start saving passwords when logging into any of these websites, you can remove it from this list or just remove all so your iPhone starts saving those passwords again. Next, Apple News has a slight tweak where at the very top of the home page, you'll now see categories here at the top. So if you want to jump over to business or food for some recipes, you can quickly navigate that using this little bar up here. And finally, number 10, if you're in the EU, you now get live translation with AirPods. Remember, this works with AirPods Pro 2 or 3, AirPods 4 as well. And then connect your AirPods, go to the AirPods settings, and if you scroll down, go to the languages setting, and here you can add languages for live translation. Press and hold both AirPods stems at the same time. That will activate live translation, then you can hear someone speaking in another language translated live in your ears. You can also activate that live translation by going to the actual Translate app and then going over to the Live tab here on the bottom. You can choose their language, your language, and then start translation here. So those are 10 new features to try. Let me know if your favorite podcast let those automated chapters stand even after 26.2 comes out, so you can drop that in the comments. If you have any questions or big features I missed, let me know down there as well. And get subscribed, hit that like button. I have more features and tip videos for all the platforms coming soon. My 2025 3-in-1 Charger Awards, I did that last year. That was pretty fun. I'm going to do it again. And I'm also going to do a top 10 2025 shortcuts video, kind of a rundown of the most popular shortcuts, and judging that by how many people actually download and use my shortcuts, so get subscribed for that as well. I'll put my last shortcuts video right up here, and some interesting features I found in visual intelligence in iOS 26. You can see my video on that right up here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.